Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through complex information and pull out the key insights for you. Today we're digging into something really fascinating. It blends history, identity, and, well, modern legal processes. We're talking about Portuguese citizenship for descendants of Sephardic Jews.
It's quite a story, isn't it? How this terrible historical event from centuries back created a specific legal path to citizenship today. And importantly, how that path itself has, well, changed quite a bit. We're basing our discussion today mainly on info from Citizenship for Sephardic Jews Access Portugal.
Okay, let's get into it then. Our goal here is to cut through the layers, give you a clear picture of this unique citizenship route, its history, what's required now, and what you need to know if this might apply to you or someone you know. And honestly, some of the details, especially how the rules have tightened up, might surprise you. So let's start right at the beginning. Why did Portugal even create this pathway for descendants of Sephardic Jews? What's the origin story here?
Well, fundamentally, it was set up to address a really deep historical wrong. You have to go back to the Inquisition, 15th century specifically. Sephardic Jews were expelled from Portugal, or they were forced to convert. So this law, which first came about in 2015, it was an attempt to acknowledge that history, to try and make amends in a way.
Right, making amends for something centuries old. But this is where it gets really interesting today, because the goalposts have moved, haven't they? The rules aren't the same as in 2015. They've been tweaked pretty significantly, I understand, in 2022, and then again just recently in 2024, making it tougher.
Exactly. Which leads to the big question. What does eligibility actually look like now, say, heading into 2025? To qualify today, you've got to prove several key things. First, obviously, clear Sephardic Jewish ancestry, and it needs a verifiable link back to Portugal. Second, you need certification from one of the official Portuguese Jewish communities that's either Lisbon or Porto confirming those Sephardic origins. Third, and this is a big one, you must have legally resided in Portugal for at least 3 years. Now, this can be consecutive or broken up, but it has to total 3 years. Fourth, you need to show, Portuguese the language. And finally, you need a clean criminal record. That's essential.
That 3-year residency requirement that really stands out, doesn't it? Our source material emphasizes that, unlike maybe other routes to Portuguese citizenship, this one specifically demands that time living in Portugal. That shift, adding the 3 years, it feels like more than just a procedural hurdle. Is it kind of a philosophical change, maybe moving away from just ancestry towards, I don't know, demanding more active integration?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes. Many see it as Portugal sort of aligning with broader European trends in immigration, where, a symbolic historical connection isn't quite enough anymore for naturalization. It's becoming more about ensuring new citizens are genuinely part of the country, contributing, having a real relationship beyond just that historical tie, which arguably wasn't the main point when the law was first created as a form of historical redress.
Okay, so with these tougher requirements clear, let's talk practicalities. Documentation. What sort of papers do people actually need to pull together for this?
Right. The documents basically mirror those eligibility points we just discussed. You'll need that certificate from the Lisbon or Porto Jewish community saying, yes, Sephardic origins confirmed. Then proof of your connection to Portugal. This can be things like family names, maybe the Ladino language in the family history. Detailed genealogy is key, sometimes even documented family memory. Evidence, of course, of those required 3 years of legal residence in Portugal. A certificate showing you've passed a Portuguese language test. Criminal record checks from, well, wherever you've lived significantly. And naturally, the completed application form itself.
That proof of connection bit the family names, language, genealogy that sounds like it could be, well, pretty tricky for a lot of people. Are there specific things within that tend to be the biggest stumbling blocks or common mistakes people make there?
Oh, absolutely. Family names can be a clue, sure. But proving the continuity of that Sephardic heritage across potentially centuries, that's complex. People often hit walls with historical records. Maybe they're incomplete, hard to find, hard to access, or just proving that direct unbroken line back to someone who was actually in Portugal pre-expulsion. It often takes really meticulous research. Sometimes people need to bring in professional genealogists, to navigate it properly.
Sounds intense. And like you said, the process has clearly changed. But what about people who maybe started this whole thing before the rules got so much stricter?
Ah, yes, that's where transitional provisions come in. Good point.
Yeah.
For applications that were submitted before the 2024 law change kicked in, there might be alternative ways to demonstrate that connection.
Okay, transitional provisions.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like legal jargon for a safety net. Can you just clarify what that really means for someone who was say, halfway through their application when everything changed.
Yeah, think of it like a bridge, exactly. It's about fairness for people already in the queue, right? If you got your application in before the 2024 rules took effect, you might still qualify under the older criteria, even if you don't meet, say, the new 3-year residency rule. It stops the government applying the tougher new law backwards, basically, to people already well into the process. So those older criteria we mentioned earlier, things like inheriting property in Portugal, making regular visits that show a real link, already holding a residence permit for over a year, maybe professional ties, those could still be relevant for that specific group of applicants.
Got it. So once someone has all their documents sorted, whether under the new rules or those transitional ones, what's the actual application journey look like, step by step?
Okay, the process itself is pretty structured. Step 1, get that crucial certification from the Portuguese Jewish community. Step 2, you need to establish legal residence in Portugal. Can't skip that now. Step 3, complete the full 3 years of that legal residence. Step 4, gather absolutely all the required documents we talked about. Everything. Step 5, submit the formal application. Step 6, pay the application fee. There's usually a cost involved. Step 7, and then, well, you wait. Processing times are typically long, think 24 to 36 months, 2 to 3 years. And then finally, step 8, hopefully receiving your Portuguese citizenship certificate.
Wow, yeah, 2 to 3 years of waiting, that's a serious commitment. Requires a ton of patience, I imagine. Have you seen cases where, I don't know, the rules change again while someone's in that long waiting period, adding even more stress?
It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. While big changes affecting an individual's application mid-process are quite rare, the fact that the law itself has been amended several times, that definitely underlines how dynamic this whole area is. And yeah, that can absolutely create anxiety for people waiting. It really highlights why it's so important to stay informed, maybe even get legal advice throughout the process.
So pulling this all together, what does it mean for you, the listener, if you're considering this path right now? What are the absolute key things to keep in mind?
Okay, the main takeaways I'd say are, first, the requirements are much tougher now than they were, especially since 2022, and particularly with that 3-year residency rule. That's crucial. Second, be prepared for a long wait. That 2 to 3 year processing time is pretty standard. Third, remember that getting the certificate from the Jewish communities might have its own set of requirements and fees, separate from the government's process. And fourth, just to reiterate, that need for 3 years of actual legal residence in Portugal really sets this specific pathway apart from many other ways someone might become a Portuguese citizen.
So this deep dive really shows how an attempt to right a historical wrong, centuries later, has morphed into this very specific and now much more demanding route to citizenship. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, of how history continues to shape our present-day laws and policies.
Absolutely. And when you look at how this law has changed from what seemed like a broad historical apology towards something requiring much more active integration, it does raise a really interesting question for you to think about. How do nations really balance trying to redress historical injustices with the, well, practical realities and the shifting priorities of modern immigration policy? And what does that inherent tension maybe tell us about national identity today?
Lots to think about there. Thank you for joining us on this really quite fascinating deep dive. We hope it's given you a much clearer picture of this complex, historically significant path to Portuguese citizenship. Until next time, keep learning.